All right, deep divers, buckle up, because today we are going deep on something that, well, it might sound a little self-helpy at first, but stick with us.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Our sources today, they actually take this idea to a whole new level, so get ready.
How do you do?
It's all about how the little things you do every day, those daily actions, they can actually lead to massive changes in your life. You know, like that whole idea of like what you do in the next 24 hours can change everything.
It's easy to kind of, dismiss that as like a motivational quote or something. But
yeah, for sure.
The sources we're looking at, they actually lay out a really convincing argument for it.
Okay, so what's the secret sauce here? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, the thing that really caught my attention, I think, was the idea that we often get so fixated on these huge, massive goals,
Oh, totally.
And in the process, we completely miss the power of like tiny, consistent shifts. It's what they call the myth of the big goal.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying that ditching the grand plan is actually the key here. That feels kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Right. It's definitely a different way of thinking about it. So instead of these huge, overwhelming objectives, the sources are all about what they call micro habits. Have you heard of that?
Micro habits. I like the sound of that already.
Yeah, it's basically those tiny little actions, the ones you barely even notice you're doing, but they like add up over time,
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I need a little more. Like, can you give me a concrete example? I'm trying to wrap my head around how something so small can actually move the needle.
Sure. So one example that really stood out to me was the idea of starting an exercise habit, but starting with just 5 minutes of activity.
5 minutes. That's it.
That's it. Sounds almost laughably simple, right?
It does.
But the point is, by making it ridiculously easy to start, you're way more likely to actually do it consistently.
Yeah.
And that consistency, that's the magic ingredient. That's what builds the foundation for real change that lasts.
You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. I am so guilty of, like, setting these crazy workout goals for myself.
Yeah.
And then I get totally discouraged when I don't instantly turn into an Olympic athlete,
Right. It happens to the best of us.
But 5 minutes. I can definitely commit to 5 minutes.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into another fascinating thing they talk about, the power of the first few hours of your day. Like, are you a morning routine person?
Oh, here we go. Morning routines.
Yeah.
It's like everyone else is out there, like, conquering the world before the sun even comes up, and I'm over here, like, just trying to find 2 socks that match.
Yeah, I get it, but hear me out on this. These sources, they really emphasize how important a solid morning routine can be.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. So paint me a picture. What does the perfect morning routine look like, according to these experts?
All right, so picture this. They actually recommend this 3-step approach. First, you got to start with something physical, some kind of activity to just like wake up your body. It doesn't have to be intense, just enough to get the blood pumping. Could be a quick yoga flow, a walk around the block, whatever works for you.
Okay, I could see how that would help shake off the cobwebs.
Right. And then step 2 is this. They recommend setting aside some time for either meditation or planning. It could be a few minutes of just paying attention to your breath or maybe jotting down your top priorities for the day, whatever helps you center yourself before things get crazy.
All right, meditation. So you're speaking my language now. I mean, not really.
I hear ya.
I'm more of a scroll through my phone, half asleep kind of person. But
Right.
I can see the value in, being intentional with how you start the day.
Exactly. And the sources are big on that idea. It's about setting the tone for the rest of your day. Instead of just letting the day happen to you, you're making a conscious choice about how you want to approach it.
Ooh, I like that. Instead of being reactive, I'm being proactive. It's like I'm setting the course for my day.
Exactly. And once you've got that momentum going, it can really create a domino effect. Have you ever noticed that? Like when you start your day off right, everything else seems to fall into place.
Oh, a domino effect. Okay, now you're talking my language. I love a good chain reaction. Tell me more about how that plays out in the sources.
You're gonna love this. They actually talk about this domino effect of small decisions that we make within a 24-hour period. And these decisions, they don't have to be life-altering to have a ripple effect.
Okay, spill the tea. Give me examples. What kind of small decisions are we talking about here?
Well, they mentioned things like finally applying for that job you've been eyeing, or choosing to cook a healthy meal instead of ordering takeout, even just sending a supportive text to a friend who's going through a tough time. It's really about those small choices that align with your values and your goals, even when they seem insignificant at the time.
Wow, this is so interesting. I'm already starting to see how these seemingly insignificant actions can actually build on each other and create like this chain reaction of positive change. Now I'm wondering, can we take that domino effect thinking to an even bigger scale? Like, what about applying it to, say, innovation or creative projects? Can we use this to achieve bigger goals?
You are so on the right track because one of the things the sources highlight is this concept of 24-hour innovation. They've studied successful people, and what they found is that a lot of these folks, they plan for big changes, but within a really specific time frame, often just 24 hours.
Hold up. So you mean instead of endlessly planning and putting things off, they're actually taking action and getting things done within a single day?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing what you can accomplish when you set that kind of constraint for yourself. They talk about things like the Kaizen method.
Kaizen method?
It's a concept that comes from Japanese manufacturing, and it focuses on making small, continuous improvements over time. Instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, it's all about making these tiny tweaks that eventually add up to massive progress.
Oh, God, I love that. It's like the complete opposite of trying to climb Mount Everest in a single jump. Instead, you're taking these smaller, more manageable steps, which ultimately makes the whole journey less daunting, right?
Exactly. And speaking of stepping outside our comfort zones, the sources have one last challenge for us. They actually suggest trying something completely new within the next 24 hours. It's like this mini adventure challenge to just shake things up and expand your horizons a little bit.
All right. I am officially on board. We've gone from 5-minute workouts to 24-hour innovation challenges. My mind is officially blown. What kind of new things are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
It could be something as simple as taking a different route to work tomorrow, or maybe exploring a new part of your city that you've never been to before, or even just striking up a conversation with someone you wouldn't normally talk to. The whole point is to break free from autopilot and just embrace the unexpected.
I am loving these ideas. It's like a reminder that even the tiniest acts of courage can lead to these unexpected discoveries and growth. And you know what? I think that's the perfect place to pause for a moment and let our listeners soak in all of this incredible information. We've covered so much ground already, but there's still so much more to explore in this idea of how small actions can lead to massive change. So stick with us. We'll be right back to dive even deeper into this fascinating topic.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. Before the break, we were talking about stepping outside of our comfort zones and trying something new within the next 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a fun challenge, right?
It is. So I'm curious, has anything come to mind for you? Anything you've been meaning to try but just haven't gotten around to it?
You know what? There's this new pottery studio that opened up downtown. I've been wanting to check it out.
Ooh, pottery.
I know, right? Maybe I'll finally sign up for a class.
Oh.
What about you? Any adventures on your horizon?
Actually, there's this hiking trail I've been kind of curious about, but it's a bit more challenging than my usual walk, so I've been putting it off. Maybe this is the push I need to finally lace up my boots and go for it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I can already picture those stunning views and that feeling of accomplishment when you reach the top.
Right.
And, you know, it strikes me that this whole idea of stepping outside our comfort zones, it really illustrates a key point from the sources, you know?
What's that?
It's not just about the actions themselves. It's about the psychological impact they have on us, like how they shift our mindset.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this concept of momentum comes into play. Each small step, even if it seems insignificant on its own, it builds momentum toward those bigger goals. It's like we're creating this, like, snowball effect of positive change.
Okay, so it's not just about checking things off a list.
No, not at all.
It's about how those actions actually change the way we think and how they build our confidence.
Exactly. And this ties into another super important psychological concept that comes up a lot in the sources: self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy. Remind me what that is again.
Yeah, so it's basically your belief in your own ability to achieve something.
Right, that I can do this feeling.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, these small actions that we're talking about, they can actually boost our self-efficacy in a really powerful way.
Okay, I'm listening. How does that work?
Well, think about it. Every time you successfully complete a small task, even something as simple as making your bed or sticking to a short workout routine, you're proving to yourself that you're capable of following through.
I see. So it's like each small win reinforces the belief that I can actually make changes and achieve my goals.
Exactly. And as that self-efficacy grows, you're more likely to take on bigger challenges, and you're more likely to persevere through setbacks because you have that internal belief system backing you up.
This is making a lot of sense. It's not just about willpower or motivation. It's about building this foundation of small wins that actually rewires our brains for success.
You got it.
As you're talking, I'm realizing it's not just about doing things. It's about doing things that are actually meaningful to us, right? Like things that align with our values.
You are so right. And the sources talk a lot about this, the importance of aligning your actions with your values. It's about making sure those choices you're making on a daily basis, that they actually reflect the bigger picture of who you want to be and what you want to stand for.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But how do we even figure out what our values are? I know that sounds like a basic question, but sometimes it's hard to even articulate, what truly matters to us.
No, that's not basic at all. It's actually a really crucial step. The sources recommend taking some time for self-reflection, maybe journaling, or just sitting quietly with your thoughts to really dig deep and identify what truly matters to you.
So, what are my core beliefs? What kind of impact do I want to have?
Exactly. What brings you joy and fulfillment? What are you passionate about? Once you have a clear sense of those values, it becomes so much easier to make choices that are in alignment with them.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I've taken some time for self-reflection. I've got my values figured out. Now what? How do I actually translate those values into tangible actions?
The key is to make choices, even small ones, that are consistent with those values. For example, if you value health, you might choose to cook a healthy meal instead of ordering takeout, even when you're tired after a long day.
Or if you value continuous learning, you might set aside 15 minutes each evening to read a book or listen to an insightful podcast.
Exactly. It's all about weaving those values into the fabric of your daily life. It's about living your values, not just thinking about them.
I love that. It's like we're creating this ripple effect of intentionality that extends outward from our core values. It's powerful stuff.
It is. And this is where it gets really interesting. The sources emphasize that once we've aligned our actions with our values, it's crucial to be patient and persistent.
Oh, patience. That's a tough one for me. I tend to be more of an instant gratification kind of person. But why is patience so important in this context?
Because real, lasting change takes time. The sources are very clear about that. It's not about overnight transformations or quick fixes. It's about those consistent, small efforts over time, even when you don't see those immediate results.
So it's not about forcing massive change all at once. It's more like gently steering ourselves in the right direction with each decision we make.
That's such a great way to put it. It's a journey, not a destination. And it's a journey that requires us to be kind to ourselves along the way.
You just said be kind to ourselves, and it reminded me of something else from the sources, something I think a lot of us struggle with, self-compassion. I know it's kind of a buzzword, but what does it actually mean in this context of making lasting change?
It basically means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend who is struggling. It's about recognizing that we're all human, we all make mistakes, and we all have those moments where we fall short.
So instead of beating myself up when I mess up, I can acknowledge the slip up, but then offer myself some grace and support to get back on track.
Exactly. The sources are all about that. They argue that self-compassion is actually crucial for maintaining that motivation and that resilience, especially when we're trying to break free from those long-standing habits and patterns.
This is so important. I think it's so easy to get caught up in that all or nothing mentality, like one slip up and the whole thing is ruined.
Oh, I know.
But if we can reframe those setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth, then we're way more likely to stay the course in the long run.
You're so right. It's all about that growth mindset.
Yep.
And speaking of growth, it's not just about focusing on the struggles, it's also about celebrating those wins, no matter how small they might seem.
Yes. Let's talk about celebrating those wins. I know I'm totally guilty of just checking things off my to-do list and moving on to the next thing without really acknowledging what I've accomplished.
I think we all do that.
Why is it so important to actually take the time to celebrate even those small victories?
Because it reinforces those positive neural pathways in our brains. It's like every time you acknowledge and appreciate your accomplishments, you're sending this signal to your brain, hey, we're on the right track, we can do this.
So instead of just brushing past those wins, I should actually savor them, let them sink in, and use them to fuel my motivation for the next step.
Exactly. And this brings us to another really interesting point from the sources. It's the idea that finding ways to make the process enjoyable is actually a key ingredient for success.
Wait a minute, are you saying it's not supposed to feel like a constant uphill battle?
Not necessarily. I mean, there will definitely be challenges along the way.
Okay, good, because I kind of like a good challenge.
Sure, but the point is, if we're constantly forcing ourselves to do things we hate, we're setting ourselves up for burnout and failure. The sources are all about finding ways to make the process fun and engaging.
That makes so much sense. Like if I'm trying to build a new exercise habit, I should choose activities that I actually enjoy.
Right. Exactly. You're much more likely to lace up those running shoes if you know you're going for a scenic run with a friend than if you're dreading a grueling gym session.
So true. It's all about finding those little sparks of joy that keep you coming back for more. And it makes me think of another point they make about being present in the moment, mindfulness.
Yes. Mindfulness strikes again. It really is a recurring theme in these sources.
It is. So how do they suggest we bring mindfulness into this whole process of making lasting change?
They encourage us to pay attention to those small details of our day, to really savor those little moments of pleasure and connection. Like instead of rushing through your morning routine on autopilot, you might take a moment to really appreciate the aroma of your coffee or the feeling of the sunshine on your face.
I love that. It's like shifting our focus from the destination to the journey itself.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of another important element they highlight, the power of connection and community.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm a firm believer that we're not meant to go through life alone.
Me too.
And the sources are big on this idea as well.
So how does connection actually play into this idea of making lasting change? Why is it so important?
Well, they emphasize that having that supportive network of people around you, it can make a world of difference in your ability to achieve your goals. It's about surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, who encourage you, and who challenge you to grow.
This is not about going it alone. It's about having that team of cheerleaders in your corner, celebrating your wins with you and offering support when you stumble.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything formal like a support group or anything like that. It could be as simple as having a friend you check in with regularly or finding an online community of people who are working towards similar goals.
I love those ideas. It's such a good reminder that we're all in this together, and we can all benefit from offering each other that support and encouragement along the way. And speaking of support, it's important to remember that we need to be our own best cheerleaders too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us to one of the final points from the sources, the importance of gratitude.
Gratitude. Such a simple concept, yet so powerful. I know for me, just shifting my focus to what I'm grateful for can totally change my mood and my outlook. But how do the sources suggest we actually cultivate gratitude in our daily lives?
They recommend taking some time each day, even just a few minutes, to reflect on the things you're thankful for, both big and small. It could be as simple as jotting down 3 things you're grateful for in a journal, or even just taking a moment to mentally acknowledge the good things in your life.
So instead of focusing on what I'm lacking or what I still need to accomplish, I can shift my attention to the blessings I already have.
Exactly. And this simple act of focusing on the positive, it can have such a profound impact on our overall well-being and our motivation.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. If we're focused on all the things we're grateful for, we're more likely to attract more good things into our lives.
Exactly. And it's not just about attracting good things, it's also about appreciating what we already have. This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
I know, right? So much to think about.
It's clear that making lasting change, it's not just about willpower or discipline. It's about cultivating a mindset, a lifestyle, a way of being in the world that supports our growth and well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a journey, not a destination. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. And as we're talking about this, it strikes me that all of these concepts we've been discussing, they're so beautifully interconnected. It's not just about taking action. It's about cultivating a mindset of gratitude, self-compassion, and connection. It's about creating that support system, both internally and externally, that allows us to truly thrive.
That's such a beautiful way to frame it. And I think it's a perfect reminder for our listeners that lasting change is this holistic process. It's about nurturing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits.
You've hit the nail on the head. And before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. What one small conscious action will you take in the next 24 hours to move closer to the life you envision for yourself? It could be something as simple as expressing gratitude to a loved one or setting aside 5 minutes for mindful breathing.
That's such a great question to sit with for a moment. And remember, deep divers, we'll be back after a short break to explore some practical tips for putting these principles into action. Stay tuned. Welcome back, deep divers. It's been quite a journey exploring all these powerful ideas about how small actions can lead to big changes.
It has.
But I bet some of you are thinking, okay, all this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually put it into practice? Like, where do I even begin?
You're right. It's time to get down to the nitty-gritty, bridge that gap between inspiration and action.
Yeah, give me the actionable steps.
All right, so one of the most practical tips from the sources is to start small.
Start small, huh?
Yeah, instead of trying to overhaul your entire life all at once, they recommend focusing on just one specific habit you want to either implement or change.
So if I'm feeling overwhelmed by the idea of like completely transforming my life, I should just pick one specific area to work on.
Exactly. They're really big on this point, like, don't try to change too many things at once, because it can backfire. You just get overwhelmed and burn out.
Makes sense. It's like trying to juggle too many balls. Eventually you're going to drop something.
Exactly. So you pick one habit and then get this, you break it down into even smaller steps.
Okay, even smaller.
They call it creating a staircase to your goal.
Yeah.
Each tiny step is like a single stair that gets you closer to the top.
I love that analogy. It's so much less intimidating than trying to leap to the top in one giant bound.
Right. And the key is to make those steps so ridiculously small that there's basically zero resistance to taking action.
Okay, give me an example. Like if I want to start exercising regularly, what would a tiny first step look like?
It could be as simple as just putting on your workout clothes each morning.
That's it. That's my first step.
That's it. It seems almost too easy, really. But it's about setting yourself up for success.
I can see how that would like prime my mind for the next step.
Exactly. And then gradually you add more steps, like walking for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and so on. And along the way, you celebrate those small wins because those little victories fuel your motivation to keep climbing that staircase.
I'm already feeling motivated just thinking about it. It's like we're rewiring our brains for progress, not perfection.
You got it. And to help keep that motivation going, the sources also recommend creating some kind of visual reminder of your goal.
Oh, I love visual reminders. I'm a very visual person, so this speaks to me. What kind of visual reminders are we talking about here?
It could be something super simple, like writing your goal down on a sticky note and putting it on your bathroom mirror so you see it every morning. Or maybe creating a vision board with images that represent your aspirations. Whatever works for you, as long as it's something that resonates with you and reminds you what you're working towards.
I love the vision board idea. It's like creating this tangible representation of your dreams.
Right. And it serves as this powerful anchor to keep you focused, especially when things get tough.
Speaking of tough, let's talk about staying motivated. The sources talk a lot about the importance of creating an environment that actually supports your goals.
That's huge. It's not just about willpower. It's about setting yourself up for success by designing your surroundings to work for you, not against you.
So it's like, if my goal is to eat healthier, I might get rid of all the junk food in my pantry and stock up on fruits and veggies instead.
Exactly. Make the healthy choice the easy choice, right?
And if I want to be more focused at work, maybe I declutter my workspace and turn off those pesky notifications.
You got it. It's all about creating that environment that supports your goals.
This is such a practical but often overlooked aspect of making change.
I know, right?
We tend to focus so much on our internal motivation, but we forget to think about the role our environment plays.
You're absolutely right. It's all about creating an ecosystem, right? One that supports your growth.
So true. And speaking of support, I know the sources talk a lot about the importance of accountability.
Yeah.
But honestly, that can feel a bit intimidating sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
So how do they suggest we approach it?
Well, they encourage us to find a friend, a family member, a mentor, someone who can offer support and encouragement along the way.
So someone who can celebrate those wins with me and offer a gentle nudge when I'm slipping and remind me why I started this whole thing in the first place.
Exactly. It's about having someone in your corner who believes in you and wants to see you succeed.
I love that. And it doesn't have to be anything super formal, right?
Not at all.
It could be as simple as texting a friend each morning to share my goal for the day, or maybe joining an online community of people who are working towards similar goals.
Those are great examples. The key is to find a level of support that feels comfortable and motivating for you.
This is all coming together so beautifully. It's like we're weaving together all these different threads, small steps, visual reminders, supportive environments, accountability, to create this tapestry of lasting change.
That's a great way to put it. And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I think it's so important to reiterate one of the most crucial messages from the sources: be patient and persistent.
Oh, patience and persistence. Those are two qualities I'm always working on. But why are they so essential in this context?
Because real change takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. There will be setbacks, there will be moments of doubt, and there will be times when you just want to give up. But it's in those challenging moments that patience and persistence become your most valuable tools.
It's like we're building a muscle, right? not just a habit. And just like any muscle, it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes consistency to see those results.
You're exactly right. And the sources remind us that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. It's all about learning and growing and becoming the best versions of ourselves along the way.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super energized to put all of this into action. Any final thoughts?
I'm feeling it too. It's such a powerful reminder that we have so much more control over our lives than we often realize.
We do.
And it all starts with those small, conscious choices we make each day.
So, deep divers, we leave you with this final question to ponder. What one small action will you take in the next 24 hours to move closer to the life you envision for yourself?
Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that step today and just watch as the ripples of change transform your life.
Until next time, keep diving deep.